Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. I have a quick question for you. Which do you think is more powerful? Consulting one-on-one or in a group? Given a chance to pick between the two options, there is a very good likelihood that we'd choose one-on-one. It's logical because we're getting the full attention of the trainer or the consultant, and we believe that it's far superior than being just one of many in a group. What makes us so sure that we made the right decision is the fact that in the past, whether it was in school or university, maybe it's in a workshop or even in an office, we've all experienced the chaos that is almost endemic to a group. There's always one loudmouth that takes over. There's one person that always wants to posture and tell you about what they've done. There are always people taking credit for stuff. Groups just seem this mishmash of people put together, and it's not good for learning. At least that's what we think. Surely one-on-one consulting, either as a consultant or as someone being consulted with, will be so much better, so much easier, so much joyful. But the group, that somehow brings out the hackles. And you're right. Group consulting can be chaotic. And we've already established that fact. But what we really want is to get the attention of the teacher. We want the teacher to help you to move forward, to remove all those gnarly mistakes that you've been making. When you're in one-on-one consulting, you can move at your own pace. You can ask the questions that plague you, and you don't get drowned out by the cacophony of the group. Despite our strongest convictions, group consulting can far outperform one-on-one situations. Let's explore these 3 points. The first, why group consulting can be far superior. Second, how to make sure that you've got everyone on the same page. And finally, how to sell the concept of group consulting to an audience that is keen on one-on-one training. Let's start out with the first one, which is why group consulting can be far superior. Back in the year 2002, I'd never heard of group consulting. My routine as a consultant involved me driving from one client's place to another and then spending hours on the road. And in meetings, dreary meetings where we're moving logos 1 centimeter to the left or 1 centimeter to the right. But even when I moved to phone consulting and internet consulting, what I'd do is I'd work one-on-one. I'd charge $150 an hour. But all that consulting was done with one person. Imagine my surprise one day when I saw this other marketer and he was advertising group consulting. I was skeptical. How could group consulting be better? Maybe it was just a way to get a higher price, I thought to myself. After all, if you're charging $150 an hour and you're working with one person, then if you've got 10 people, now that's $1,500 an hour, the same hour. But even if you were to reduce your prices by 33% and charge $100 per person, you'd still earn $500 to $700 per hour with a relatively tiny group. I was viewing it solely from the perspective of money. But that skepticism kind of vanished when I realized that the problem lay not in group consulting, but rather in the choice of the groups. Once the groundwork was done, a group's individual and collective performance went up considerably. group consulting was and is superior for several reasons. The first of the reasons was clearly the variety of situations. Let's assume you're consulting with the owner of a cafe. As a consultant, you have ideas of what the owner can do to improve their sales of their products. However, a one-on-one consulting is like a ping-pong match. The client brings up the problem, you as a consultant have a solution. No matter how experienced you are, it's likely that your solution is based on your own knowledge. Yet the moment the very same problem is put to the group, the dynamics change considerably. Let's assume that all of the people in the group are from different cafes. All of them have had different experiences. Some of them will jump in and they will express how that problem can be solved. But let's assume that everyone is not from a cafe, just that one person is from the cafe. Well, it still works because when you look at something from the outside, you're not looking at it from the myopic view of the industry. Take, for instance, that coffee card that you get every time you go to a cafe. Most cafes have that. Some of them don't. So why are the ones that don't succeeding? Why are the ones that don't charging more than the ones that do? Are the ones that don't give out the coffee card making more of a profit? And why do they do? And when you look at it from a group's point of view, and they're all cafe owners who all give out coffee cards, well, that's very hard to go past that view because all of them are already doing it. All of them don't know how to get out of it. But for someone that's outside the industry, they don't have the same emotional attachment or even profit attachment to that coffee card. So they're able to look at it objectively and come up with a solution that's more objective. Something that could change that coffee card, something that could probably change the profit structure of their cafe. So the first thing that happens when you're part of a group, and let me highlight that the group has been carefully picked. Well, when you're part of such a group, then what you get is an immense amount of discussion and ideas that you really would not expect. That you as a consultant would not have, you would not be able to give your client, but the group is able to come up with a solution that is dramatically different. Even if that group is, strictly speaking, competition, or if that group has no relevance to your industry at all. Not convinced? Let's take a second example. Let's say you're asked to give your views on a sales page. You're the sales page expert, and of course, you're likely to know what can be fixed, what can be moved, what could be added, what could be subtracted. Yet, time and time again, experts have biases that they can't control. As a consultant, you see the world from a specific point of view, and the others, who also happen to be buyers, can see a totally different point of view. Having those extra eyes and those additional voices ramps up the quality of the solution. It reduces the dependence on you as the sole expert. So this is useful not only for you as a consultant, but it's also useful from the group's point of view to have many eyes on it. You as a consultant, you can be pretty adept at coming up with solutions, but there's no way you can have the collective knowledge of a group. And it's only chaotic when you're going with a generic question like, what do you think of this website? Then you're going to get chaos because people are just going to come up with their own answers. But when you go with one parameter, which is, what about this headline doesn't work? And you have parameters of how to write a headline, and the group knows how to write a headline. Well, what you've got now is an objectivity that you could not get just by you being the expert. And what's the result of all of this? As the consultant, you're happy. And the group, the clients, they're happy as well because they get the collective knowledge of the group. They can pick and choose, and they don't have to solely depend on your imagination or your experience. However, for such a scenario to unfold, we have to go to our second part, and that is that you have to get everyone in the group on the same page. So let's find out why the same page is so crucial. One of the unique factors of a psychotactics workshop or a live course online is that there is no shock and awe. Whenever you join another course or you go to a workshop, what you end up getting is a whole bunch of notes and audio and video, but that's when you show up on day one. And at the same time, the workshop begins or the course begins, and then you have to catch up with the assignments and also with the reading or the listening or the watching. Not so with psychotactics. What we do is we promise that we will send all of that information a whole month in advance, sometimes more than a month in advance. And this puts a lot of pressure on me because I have to create new content, create new slides, and yet at the same time make sure that all the audio and notes, or at least the notes, reach the clients well in advance so that they can go over it once or twice or even thrice before the workshop begins. Once they get to the workshop, once they get to the course, they're already familiar with the concepts, and there is no shock and awe. There is no desire to impress. Instead, there is this need to learn. What we have also done, however, is get them all on the same page. Whenever you have chaos in a group, usually it's because people are not on the same page. And you see this when someone asks you to look at a photo, for example. The other night we were celebrating a family member's birthday and the new iPhone was out. One of the family members picked up the iPhone, took a picture with the new iPhone and then the old iPhone, and then went around the group asking them which one was better. And what we had is group chaos because you had a split. Some people thought this one was better and someone thought that one was better, and there were no parameters because everyone was not on the same page. And we have this when we ask people, what do you think of my sales page? What do you think of my website? Why is this presentation not turning out to be so good? That answer is very difficult to give, maybe impossible, because everyone's going to come from different angles. And even a small little change that you have to make might take a few days or a few weeks. And we don't have people on the same page. So the first thing we have to establish is the same page phenomenon. And we do this by establishing those parameters. So in the early days when we were doing consulting with a group, then we'd get everybody to read the first chapter of The Brain Audit. And in the first chapter of The Brain Audit, we talk about the problem and the solution, or at least about the problem. What happens then is we're going to look at the sales page, or we're going to look at the sales pitch or whatever from the basis of the group having read that chapter. And when you bring up the problem, you as the teacher, as the consultant, can express your opinion, give the facts, but then the group also has very limited parameters. And here I'm introducing another concept that is not just parameters, but often just one parameter before you get a second one. So you get A plus B plus A plus B plus C. And that's when a group works really well, when they have a document, they have a video, they have an audio, they've gone over it, they can then come to it with the knowledge, and then you're tackling that problem from that parameter alone. And group consulting works exceedingly well from that perspective. But at this point, you're probably wondering, well, that's fine if everybody's doing a sales page and everybody's doing a web page and everybody's doing a presentation. But what if we have a situation where there are 10 different business owners and each business owner has different problems and they're just on a call, just about marketing, and they're asking you about that problem? So the cafe owner is asking you how to get rid of that card, that loyalty card. But then the other person is asking you about how to increase their prices. And the third person is asking you how to get better testimonials. And so it's coming from all over the place. But even under these conditions, if you've created a safe space, then you get the group participating. Whenever I start a presentation at a workshop, for instance, the first of many slides is that this is a safe space, that you can ask questions, that you can comment, that you can be part of the group. And clients come up to me later and say, I liked that slide. I didn't know that they liked that slide, but they tell me that they liked that slide. We do the same thing with a workshop or with a group consulting, that you always tell them that it's a safe space, that they can ask big questions, they can ask small questions, they can ask silly questions, and that no question is beyond them, and that no person can be rude to the other person, that they can all help and be constructive. And so you've created that safe space. When everyone feels that they're allowed to comment in a constructive way, under your watchful eye, you're creating that same page situation. They know that they're all there to solve a problem, and that when they get to their turn, they're more likely to get the same level of respect that has been given to others. All of these elements need to be in place beforehand and to be stated in the group sessions repeatedly. Once the group settles in, they're more likely to teach and treat each other with respect. It's not like you're going to change the personality of the group. Mr. Grumpy will still be Mr. Grumpy, and Mr. Confused is likely to be still Mr. Confused. But because they're moving forward as part of a group, and because they have parameters, and because you've created that safe space, they're likely to work much better together. So that even when the group consists of a bunch of people from different professions and the questions that are coming from different angles, it still works much better than one-on-one consulting. And this brings us to the end of the second part. We covered why group consulting can be far superior than one-on-one consulting, and then we looked at how you can create that safe space and make sure that everyone is on the same page. Which takes us to the third concept, and this is you as the consultant. How are you going to sell the concept of group consulting to an audience that wants one-on-one training? If you go to the Psychotactics consulting page, what you find is that we charge quite a lot for 1 hour worth of consulting. And then we have courses and we have workshops and we have even at some level the membership site at 5000 BC. And they're all forms of group consulting. And it's no surprise that we have fewer people that come for one-on-one consulting than group consulting. How does that happen? It's through a factor of price. But not just price, but also testimonials, which in turn reduce the risk of being part of a chaotic group. The first factor is obviously price. Let's say as a consultant you charge $150 an hour, or you charge $500 an hour, or $750 an hour. It doesn't matter. The client knows how much you charge, and they're willing to pay for it under some conditions. But how can the client get that at half the price? And this is the idea that you're presenting to the client, that they could advance their business paying the full price, or they could pay half the price or a fraction of the price if they were prepared to be part of the group. They get that. They're pretty smart. Clients are intelligent and they know, wait a second, I'm getting this at a slight bargain price. But immediately what happens is the objection pops up. It's all the chaos, it's all the loudmouths, it's all unprepared systems. All of that pops up immediately. And so while we're saying, hey, you're getting a better price, we also have the disadvantages. And this is where the testimonials come in, and of course, where the risk reduction comes in. The first time you sell a group consulting, it's going to be the toughest of all because you have no testimonials. You have no proof that group consulting is better or superior in any way. And so that's going to be slightly tough. But once you get over that, now you've got the testimonials. And the testimonials need to strictly attack the problem that group consulting is inferior, which is what we did with the Protégé course. We had 15 people in a single group. Those 15 people worked online in groups, smaller groups, of course, not all 15 together, but they worked online. We met in California. They worked for 7 days together. And at the end of it, what we got was a bunch of testimonials. Let me read just a couple so that you can understand where this is coming from, because this is all about risk and reduction of that risk. People don't want to be part of a group because they don't like being part of a group, and because they've been part of a group and it's not worked for them. So let's take a deep breath and read the testimonials, and then I'll explain why those testimonials worked. So example number 1. The group experience was amazing. All the group members were very encouraging, especially when I was struggling through at the initial point. And they would make sure that I didn't feel discouraged and always left a cheering note. They also helped me with inputs on assignments, which was great. Immediately, you see what's happening here. The risk being tackled here is that you're going to be part of a group that is going to be divisive, that's going to pull apart. But instead, the testimonial is showing you how the group melded together and moved forward and helped the person who individually would probably have struggled. Let's take a second example. This is a different type of group. This is an article writing group. And here is the testimonial. I loved being in my group. I enjoyed being able to focus on a few other articles to see their improvement. Comments, ideas, suggestions, and support from others in the group was very encouraging. So what does this testimonial do? It does something similar to the first testimonial. It brings the warm, fuzzy feeling across, but it also shows you that you are not alone. Many of us, when we're approaching something, think that we're the only ones that are making the mistakes. And then we look at other people's work and we realize, and especially in headline writing or article writing or sales page, we realize that other people are having the same problem, usually at the same time, and making the same mistakes. And then we learn from their mistakes. We look at the group's mistakes and we learn much faster. Because we can't always see our own mistakes. We see the other people's mistakes and we go, oh, wait a second. It's not just me. Everybody's making the same mistake. But I can see the mistake. And that's what the second testimonial does. And here's the third and final testimonial. I have found that being in a group is a great motivator. I've done other courses in the past with similar structure, assignments each week and all of that stuff. But the fact that we were in small groups gave me a feeling of satisfaction. It made me feel safe, and it's easier to keep going when you see others keeping on top of it. And the testimonial goes on. It says the other side is that you are learning a lot from others, both from what they're doing so well and what isn't so good after all. Plus, of course, others have insights that you don't have, and this can work as a light bulb moment, and there have been quite a few for me during this consulting session. Now, that was the third testimonial, and I don't have to analyze it for you. As you heard that testimonial, you heard all of your objections coming up and the objections being destroyed. So it's not so much the price factor. People are afraid of being part of a group because there is no structure, there is no system, there is no safety. And all of that needs to be overcome. And that's your job as someone who's transitioning from being a one-on-one consultant to a group consultant. And when you do that for the first time, you get the testimonials, and the testimonials take on all the objections of the group, which is, it was too big, it was too loud, I didn't get enough attention, I didn't get enough solution, all of those objections. Get the testimonials that reduce that stress and that risk factor, and it's a win-win for both of you. You get paid a much larger sum, you get the advice from within the group, so you don't have to do all the legwork yourself. And the clients also get the benefit of a lower price, and they make friends. And this is why when we do psychotactics workshops, we don't have to market it so much, because about 50% of the audience wants to come back. When we do a course, 50% of the audience who's done another course wants to be part of the course. And in a way, Renuka will say, hey, let's have some new faces here as well. And as a result, we have to do little or no marketing, no ads, no joint ventures, none of that fussy stuff. We don't have to send 100 emails. And we can spend that time so that we can send that information in advance. We can get people in that safe space. We can work out a system. We can sort out the groups. And if you've listened to some of the podcasts, Renuka goes through all that detail of how we sort out groups and how we make it useful for them. And that's something that you need to do as well. And if you have to ask more questions, you can do so on email or 5000BC, and I'll be happy to answer. But here is the summary, because we're running out of time here. The first thing is that group consulting is far superior than one-on-one, not just from a revenue point of view, but also from a learning point of view, from an implementation point of view, from a, hey, this is the group and we're moving all forward together. For all of this to happen, you have to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And so information has to be sent in advance. They have to go through that information once, twice, maybe thrice if possible, so that they don't feel this shock and awe on the first day of the event or the course or even consulting. They have a bunch of parameters and you're tackling one parameter at a time, or A plus B plus C, not C, and you're moving forward. And finally, it's our own reluctance that stops us. We go, how do we sell this to an audience that's more interested in one-on-one consulting? And the way to solve that problem is relatively simple once you've done it for the first time, because the only reason why clients don't want to be part of a group is because they've experienced the chaos of a group. And once you've got the testimonials, then that's job done. So what's the one thing that you can do today? The one thing that you can do today is to work out how can you get people on the same page. So if you look at a simple book like The Brain Audit, well, there are 7 chapters, or strictly speaking, 7 red bags. Well, how do we get everybody to just read the chapter on the problem? Then how do we get everybody to read the chapter on the solution? And so that way you get people on the same page, and then you're working through that, even though you're working on their marketing problem or their engineering problem or whatever. But having some kind of guidance, some kind of system, some kind of parameter, just one parameter is enough. You don't have to have everything in place. You can put them as you go along like Lego blocks, which is what we did for most of our courses, which was what we did for most of our workshops. We built it bit by bit, stage by stage, and it's possible to do it. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. And it was surprisingly long. I thought it was going to take like 15 minutes, and we're at the 24-minute mark or later if you add the music. Well, anyway, what's happening in Psychotactics land? Well, it's straight into 2021 now. So on the 23rd of Jan, we have the home study of the Info Products course. Now, a lot of us want to put together some books or some kind of information product, and we don't know how to do it without just dumping everything into it. There is a system, and that system is very elegant, and it's outlined in the Info Products course. And this also gives you an idea of how the client can approach it when you're doing consulting, if you choose to sell the info product and do group consulting, which is what we did. We created the Brain Audit. After that, we created the group consulting on the basis of the Brain Audit. And then we had the membership site, which was also on the basis of the Brain Audit. So having an info product like loosely what we call like a Bible, well, then everything else follows from that one single product. And that's kind of how we built Psychotactics. So 23rd of Jan, that's the Info Products course. On the 27th of Feb, we're going to do what we'd call the landing page course or the copywriting course or whatever you want to call it. But essentially, it is when you're going to sell that product, then you know that, hey, I have to go and get a copywriter, or I have to write it myself, but I don't know what I'm doing. Well, now we'll find a method, even if you're not a copywriter, especially if you're not a copywriter, how to create that sales page that gets the results that you're looking for, which is to sell your product. So that's on the 27th of Jan. No, not 27th of Jan, 27th of Feb, the last day of Feb. Right. That brings us to the end of this podcast, but also the podcast for 2020, because from now on, we're going to have reruns 6 weeks in a row. As you know, we are the people from the 3-month vacation, and December is one of the points in time when we take that break. So from the next week and into most of Jan, we're going to have reruns, and then we'll come back in Feb. You'll enjoy the reruns. Listen to them. It's stuff you've probably heard before or maybe never heard before, but you can implement those. Keep taking those walks, keep listening to the reruns, and we'll see you in 5000 BC. Bye for now. Still listening? Well, here's the easy contest. You know how you have those contests where only one person wins and you never know who that person is? Well, this time that person is you. Write to me by email, and it's at Sean@psychotactics.com. You'll find it on the website as well. And tell me which was the podcast that you enjoyed the most. It could be a podcast that you listened to this year or the previous year or any year. It doesn't matter. We've been going for several years. Which is the podcast that you enjoyed the most, and why did you enjoy it? And if you have any applications, like you implemented it and you got some results, that would be wonderful. It doesn't have to be that. Just which is the one that you enjoyed the most and why. And I will draw a postcard and send it to you at your address, like with a real cartoon, not a printed one. That's me saying, go ahead and win this competition, and make a note right now. Put an alarm on your phone if you're out walking or something, so that you remember to send it to me. It's just an email, but it helps me and it helps you get that wonderful little postcard. That's it, and we'll see you back in 2021.